It's Spoilerin time. This week on Spoilerin time, we will take all that hard work we do on Cordkillers, figuring out how to watch things, and now having watched them, talk about them. This week, we're going to talk about The Larry Sanders Show, episodes 1 and 2 of season 6, the last season of The Larry Sanders Show. Talk about Lovecraft Country, episode 2, and Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 3. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Hey, beautiful people. So last week you said that you couldn't, you insisted that we talk about Larry Sanders all as, wait, what are we starting with?
Let's start with Star Trek Lower Decks.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry, the last words I heard was Larry Sanders. I was like, Larry Sanders.
But he said the Sanders. No, we're talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, the episode called Temporal Edict, about workplace management. Like this episode probably made me fall in love with Lower Decks.
I'm so glad you said it
and Ensign
first.
Mariner. And also on paper shouldn't be as interesting as it was.
I definitely had that same thought where it's like, I think I'm in love. I think I love everything about this show. I think it's punchy. It's genuinely funny. The characters are all cartoons, but that's why they're cartoons.
But it's a cartoon.
But they also, like, they are so perfectly precise character diamonds. Like, I can already, in 3 20-minute episodes, tell you how almost every character would react in any situation at this point, which is masterful, punchy writing. And as somebody who loves comedy and appreciates not wasting my time, here's the other thing that's fun is I thought I would hate it being a cartoon and a comedy because it would reduce all of my Star Wars or Star Trek experience. But instead, there's a shared collective backstory where they can do a throwaway line that on the surface, you don't need to know what a Cardassian is. But if you do, it's a little bit funnier, you know? And
right. They do a good job of walking that line of this is not going to impede you if you don't get it. You're not going to feel like, wait, am I left out? Am I missing something? Because they do enough explanation around it that you get the context. But if you do know it, there is a little extra punch there. I felt that way about the entire buffer time. Like that works in any episode of any show, right? The idea of like, oh, we always exaggerate and then the office wants to crack down. But it's extra fun in the Star Trek universe where like that's a thing since Scotty in the original series that people have poked fun of and even alluded to in various iterations of Star Trek.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of Lower Decks is I've not liked and I'm glad that they killed the Star Wars version, you know, the robot chicken stuff. Like all of those jokes boil down to remember this, you know, kind of like political comedy's gotten really hard because so many punchlines are, and our president is an orange cheetah. Like it's like, no, I need something better. Don't just, you can't have the punchline be, this was a thing. I really don't feel like they're doing that at all. I mean, they are building a story. I'm falling in love with the crew. I'm falling in love. I'm looking forward to the relationships. And they set up in the first episode and have not touched the fact that, what's our main character's name? Is
Boimler or Mariner?
Mariner, the one whose the mom is the captain.
Yeah, Mariner.
Mariner,
like
yeah.
they've not even touched that. Like, and that is such good writing to just, you know, throw it out and have that be its moment. And that's that's gonna pay off or be significant at some point. But meanwhile, they're too busy.
But you're not gonna feel beaten over the head with it.
Yeah,
right?
They're too busy telling other, better, more interesting stories.
And the fact that you didn't realize it until that moment they revealed it now feels legitimate because you're like, oh yeah, nobody ever talks about it, right? It's not
like, why would you? Why would any character walk around, you know, talking about how you're related to the boss?
And I feel like they did that again, I'll be interested to see, with the romantic tension between Ensign Mariner and Commander Ransom, which they just kind of lightly dusted. They didn't push it. And I don't think it's going to be mentioned at all in the next episode, but it's going to come back.
But they also, they set it up and they did the hard thing, which is to bookend it with him throwing her in the brig and her just going punk rock, kicking over stuff. We're like, good, I love the brig. Like,
I mean, oh my God. Yeah, Mariner is possibly, I mean, I'm exaggerating right now because, you know, I'm in love, but I think she's my favorite Star Trek character ever.
I agree. Like I got to learn the characters' names, but the fact that she walks on stage, says, "I don't know what this song is," you know, but who cares? And she starts just thrashing, and then
right, and then
it
the
just says, "You're
ridiculousness
welcome."
of it, like shaking the Klingon ship through the vacuum of space. Like, I don't even care. It's funny.
Yeah, it's a very good show, and I'm gonna feel weird recommending it highly, and this is gonna be one that my wife is gonna roll her eyes. I guess the pitch I'm gonna give to my wife is, okay, what if Rick and Morty wasn't gross and was in the Star Trek universe and gave respect to the universe? She'll be like, maybe.
That doesn't sound possible. Yeah. We'll just see about that. No, I'm fully on board. It's going to be tough to keep this up. It's a balancing act that they're running. So I'm not necessarily so starry-eyed that I think every episode from here on out will be as good as this one. But I'm curious to see them pull off this low rise act, if you will.
Three for three. I mean, they're batting 1,000 in my book. To be honest, I'm surprised that the IMDb rating is only 6.4. Maybe that's just that Star Trek isn't for everybody.
Yeah, no accounting for taste. I think.
I'll say I keep having the same thing where it's like, this is I think as the non-Star Trek voice in the room, I feel like you could write a funnier version of this that's not Star Trek.
It's possible. That's what Orville tried to do, right? Like, what if we were freed from the canon? Can we write a really funny thing? And they did.
Because I could just tell, like, there was a line about Kirk that didn't play for me at all in this episode.
All right.
Because, like, okay, cool, is the guy.
But you know,
for example, the I believe the Kirk moment was related to how he fought the monster, and a good example is when he was fighting the monster. Every single blow was a double-fisted hit, which probably didn't matter or register.
Very weird to me, yeah.
But to you, it just looked like that's a wacky way for someone to fight. But to people who, you know, for 50 years have been following the canon, they're all like, oh my God, he's like, it was one move that Kirk did once, but it was iconic. And this guy, there's kind of a second layer joke that it's the only move that he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's just where, like, I think I'm just always going to bump up against that audience, that knowledge level for the show. But
fair.
I like
that you're our index for that, because I feel like the show's pretty good at it.
Yeah. And I like the concept, and I like the execution, and, like, you know, the actual comedy writing is generally good. Like, it escalates rather well. It resolves really well. It's a really dense show is the other thing. Like, Mariner especially talks very fast. They put a lot into these 30-minute episodes, not even 30 minutes.
If you don't listen to your podcast at 2x, it's hard to follow Lower Decks at 1x.
Ooh, that's interesting. I wonder how primed we've
Because I only listen 1x.
Yeah.
I'm a 1x purist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wild.
The other thing I want to acknowledge is the great button with Boimler being the only one who follows the rules and likes the buffer time system, the new system that they try to put in place that makes the ship fall apart, realizes that it's only for him, not everyone, and then has the rule that rules are bad named after him. And the fictional future where they're like, Boimler was the least rule following ensign ever all time.
Yeah. No, it's great. I'm really enjoying it. Oh, and a visual treat as well, like from a design aesthetic. Little things like the rolled up sleeves and
a lot of, like, shading. Like, you don't get a lot of shading in animated comedies like this, even like Rick and Morty, but like, I noticed it a lot, and it's not used for effect. It's used, like, that's just like the standard of their animation, which is like not easy to do, and it's like an extra bit of detail that goes kind of a long way.
It is. It's both rich and crisp, and that is a hard slider bar, because one is too expensive and unmaintainable, and also not funny. It seems to hit the Futurama sweet spot for me in terms of animation quality.
That is Star Trek Lower Decks, Episode 3. Let's talk about Lovecraft Country, episode 2, Whitey's on the Moon, named after the iconic Gil Scott-Heron song that they play at the end. I'm not sure that the Gil Scott-Heron song really fits into the episode. It's a great song, a bit of satire on its own, and certainly period appropriate. But the episode itself is about what happens at Artem to our three main characters and what the reason they have been lured there is, or at least the reason that our main character has been lured there.
Yeah, I didn't mind the Whitey on the Moon part. It was a little bit jarring because I thought for a split second I was like, we didn't go to the moon until the 60s. This is the 50s.
Yeah.
And then I remembered they just played Marilyn Manson. Like,
yeah,
you didn't get
and
confused.
they played the theme to the Jeffersons when they first wake up in the big mansion.
Right,
so yeah,
yeah.
the music is going to be anachronistic. You just got to get used to that.
Yeah, I guess that one was a bit of an uncanny valley moment for me because it was
Me
only
too.
10 years off. And
I mean, yeah, it was too close.
Everything else was just wildly out there.
Yeah.
But again, the sentiment, I think they're doing a good enough job of really racially charging stuff that the sentiment behind Whitey's on the Moon is at the time that came from a place of genuine anger that I can't get my bills paid, but we're going to be paying for the fact that Whitey's on the moon for that's billions and billions of dollars. What the hell are you guys doing? So I didn't mind it. I minded more in that moment the over the top better than CW special effects, but more than
the monsters.
No, like the electricity and the gateway
ceremony
and the
the sparklies.
Yeah. That. But now let's back up though. So we have I had mixed feelings about that part. Everything up until then. I like this episode much better than episode 1 because it's very, very hard to be obvious and big with your VFX and direct and clear about the spell casting and all that, and yet also remain ominous. Most of the times you achieve that ominous, gross, dark feeling by showing stuff off screen or clever wordplay that makes people look the other way and terrible actions are implied but not shown. They did a very good job of threading the needle outside of that last scene of like, even though we were seeing spellcraft and, over the top in monsters and all that stuff, they did a very good job. And I think it's a testament to the acting skills of the main trio that I still felt creepy even after we knew, because they kept forgetting and I believed all of that.
Yeah. I also, and I like this. I read the book, so a lot of this, some of it's fuzzy in my mind, and I'm like, oh right, this is what happened. So I don't know every single thing that's coming next, but I do know the general tone. And one of the things they've captured really well in the TV show as well is this sort of metaphor of Uncle George saying like, listen, let's just behave ourselves and not stand out and maybe we'll get by, right? Like that is the Black experience as it has been told to me often. Is like, well, sometimes you need to do that. And there's a line of when you need to stop doing that. And they're in a microcosm here, but they're doing that. And they sort of like, just wait and everything will be fine. And then it turns out it's not fine. And somebody who pretends to be your ally really isn't your ally. And all of that is woven into this really well.
Yeah. Normally I found a loophole, gotcha moment that could have been really dumb, but it really wasn't. It felt charged and powerful, and I loved it. The deaths, I didn't believe for a second that Letty. I didn't believe for a second that she was gonna die, but the moment they found Atticus's dad, I totally believed that George was gonna die, and I. Maybe he shows up as a ghost or something in the future, but they seemed to have flatly indicated that my work here is done for exposition.
Right. The cheese stands alone.
That's I enjoyed it being Omar. Turns out is his dad, and he's very good. And the fact that he,
if you're wondering, Michael Kenneth Williams plays Montrose Freeman, Atticus's dad, also played Omar in The Wire.
Right.
For anybody who hasn't seen The Wire, that's what we're talking about.
It takes me a while to so many names, but the fact that right upon rescuing him, he's angry. He's just like, you can't recognize a freaking letter written under duress. What the? And just knowing they're not going to get along,
and encapsulates what we've been told about the relationship. And you might be forgiven for thinking like, well, they battled in the past, but his dad's going to be so thankful for the rescue that all of that will be bygone. It's like, no, in reality, this is the way it would work out.
Yeah. I did not hate the monsters nearly as much this time, especially now that we met the Hound Master, who I believe was the meth head from Orange is the New Black. Is that the same actor?
Did not seem familiar to me.
She looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place her.
Yeah. I thought this was a very good episode. However, I'm now getting interested enough in the lore that I wonder how much longer I'll be pleased to have every episode remind me of how bad the Black experience was in the 1950s. And
yeah, well, and that's a balance to walk, right? Because you definitely in this series can't shovel it under the rug. But at some point it can overwhelm and be like, yes, we've got that message. And so I know how they handle it in the book. I'm curious how they're going to handle it in the show, especially because I remember at this point in the book thinking, but that's the story. Like, we just got the whole story, didn't we? Like, where do we go from here?
Well, and especially if they're dancing around the possibility of, a franchise, which I don't know if they do. HBO seems to be comfortable with one and dones or at least short.
Yeah,
and dones.
I feel like there's enough in this book to do more than one season potentially. But you could also, the pace they're going, pack it into one, and that may be what they intend.
That opening definitely felt very. We talked a bit about how I was getting a little bit of Preacher vibes, and that opening scene, like my eyes, my pupils dilated, and I was like, Preacher. But I don't know. I liked it for what it was. Great cast and amazing acting, and I hope we see a Force Ghost George in the future.
Wouldn't that be nice? All right, Lovecraft Country, episode 2. Let's talk about the Larry Sanders Show, episodes 1 and 2 of season 6. Another list and the beginning of the end. At the end of the second episode here, the beginning of the end, Larry announces he's leaving the show, and we know this is the last season. So it sounds like we're playing out that scenario of this being his final season, both in the fictional Larry Sanders Show and in the real one. Another list is Larry kind of resisting network suggestions to change the show, which leads up to what happens in the next episode. And Hank meeting a lookalike fan who has his license plates that say, "Hey now."
Of the 2 episodes, I thought that the first one was more even. Do we know? I assume that they knew this was going to be their last season, and that's why they made it about it. Or
I don't know. I don't know that for sure. Yeah. I'm curious as well.
Not that it matters. The first episode I thought was more even in that. There's this, bombastic, there's an awful lot of Jon Stewart stuff, and
Jon Stewart and Winona Ryder making out in the green room.
Well, and Jon Stewart perfectly nailed it and sets up the last bit where he says, I know what he's going to do. And I'm like, well, what's he going to do? He's like, he's going to step on all of my lines. He's going to mess them up. And then sure enough, watching that play out was a joy. And then that moment that Artie says, look, I've tried to shield you from a lot of stuff, but this is your decision to make. And he says, I want to restart the show. And then it just ending with the punch of him taking the network notes and doing the high fives and everything was great. I thought that was a very even episode. The second episode was just, the majority of it was just a bummer. Just him sour and dour and bummed out. But then the last couple of minutes, when he has the realization that he's going to quit, like it's just everybody being awful to each other for most of the episode, which I think is what made me burst out laughing a couple of times and just feel genuinely awesome when he just announces I'm out. And
it's one of those things where it was not fun to see him go through all of that, but I guess it did pay off because you understand why he's finally sticking up for himself and saying that. And a few things went through my mind. One is he's been through the end of a show before with It's Gary Shandling's show, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it was like this, but there's some reality he's drawing.
He's
been the guest host, so he knows the Jon Stewart side of this, right?
Yeah.
Because he was the Tonight Show guest host for many years, right? It was Tonight Show, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I think they were grooming him and
yes, Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's something that I don't know that they are aware of at this point, because these were obviously written before they aired in March 98, but Jon Stewart is about to take over The Daily Show from Craig Kilborn.
Had he already had his MTV show by then?
Yes. This is in the interregnum between those two, I believe.
Okay, so it's credible that he would be in that same spot. Jon Stewart is amazing throughout all of this. I've never seen, even as Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk more punchable than he was in this one episode. 1998, man. It's starting to sound actually topical. They're talking about the real doll. They're making references to stuff that to me now feels like 20 minutes ago and not. I mean, this season was released to a couple of 2-3 years before 9/11. Like that's how
it was 1998.
Current.
These are March 1998. Yeah. Well, we're now in the internet era, right? Like this is the rise of it. The real doll I think of as a .com era topic. And that struck me too. When he mentioned that, I was like, oh, we're in the modern era.
Yeah. This is AOL's a thing. This is, they're probably going to be talking about sending each other emails at some point. I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Larry Sanders Show?
No, I hope I felt really bogged down and was really not enjoying just everyone beating up on Larry, but that power dynamic shift that I would like my desk back for the final 8 weeks. Like now, all of a sudden, Larry with senioritis, Larry with all the suitors for what he's going to do next, and Larry middle fingering the network, not in a passive aggressive way, but in an aggressive way. I'm excited to watch the rest of this season.
Yeah. The next episode we're going to watch is called As My Career Lay Dying. So that is the Larry Sanders Show, episodes 1 and 2 of season 6. And that's Spoilerin time. Thanks everybody for watching, for supporting us. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. You'll get these episodes earlier if you do. And you'll also get After Talk, where we talk about what shows we should put in to Spoilerin time. So get those, Patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll spoil you again next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.